it really feels like this experience of almost kind of like having an inner shower for me, of like kind of having this mechanism that's gotten maybe a little like rusty, a little kinked, and I didn't really know. And then in doing this, it like was going in and like fixing some of that, putting some oil on the rust, and things just kind of like popped and clicked, but they didn't make any sound like this way. I could really feel that like change and flow of things just like getting out of the way of themselves and opening up to something. And I really felt my navel for the first time ever, like really energetically in a new way. Yeah, it feels like a lot is just kind of clearing out. So I'm just so grateful.
Welcome to Study Buddy, meditation philosophy for the heart of your practice. This is a live online discussion of ancient yogic texts amongst meditation practitioners in the Shambhavananda yoga tradition. My name is Acharya Satyam, a resident teacher at Konalani Yoga Ashram in Hawaii, and I welcome you with love and respect. We look again at Dharana 7. Cosmic nectar from sound to soul. The idea being that we're using the vowel sounds of the Sanskrit alphabet according to the teachings of the Dharana to sort of feel our, not just our physical body, but our subtle body, and to bring our attention within, ultimately to a deeper experience of our true nature. I'm going to do a little bit of a recap. We'll dive into the practice, and we'll do a little bit of yoga before that. And then we'll have more time today for discussion and reflection. So quick recap here on the concept. Matrika. Matrika Shakti is the source of all creation. Matrika here in this quote we read last week is the mother of the universe, but this mother is unknown. Mother of the universe, but the mother is unknown. And that's like a part of the definition. The universe is created from this mother of sound. This vibration creates all of manifestation. And when we use manifestation consciously, we can rediscover that source from which all this came. This source specifically is described in terms of the vowel sounds. Are the 12 vowel sounds relate to sort of the pure tattvas, the highest manifestations, and relate directly to Shiva, and that is our focal point for our practice today. This is something that's really familiar to our practice. In the introduction to the Guru Gita, Shambhavananda says the power of this practice, the Guru Gita, is not gained from mental grasping, but by simply allowing the mantra to reverberate within one's being. And so this is echoed by Paul Reps in a very familiar quote that Babaji talks to us about. He says, Paul Reps used to say, the mantra should rattle your bones. So what's all this getting at? It's trying to say that we've got these sacred sounds, right? But we need to identify with them and work with them at a deeper level than just communication, or at a deeper level than just at the tip of the tongue. And that when we can do that, when we can let it, quote, reverberate within our being, or rattle our bones, or however you want to say it, something happens. There's a practice that occurs. There's an alchemy that happens. And that, again, is the focal point of Dharana 7, which we'll look at in a moment. This is actually a little bit more common today than we might realize. There's a lot of work happening today with frequencies, with the use of special frequencies for concentration, relaxation. If you think about it, even that ultrasound that you might have got at physical therapy was a vibration, a sound frequency that was used for healing. Frequencies, as far as real life practical scenarios, are becoming increasingly more common, as our technology develops. But of course, these yogis were accessing these frequencies from within. They were generating the frequencies and then feeling them, and then feeling the source of where they're coming from. The vowel sounds are special in Sanskrit because they can stand alone. You can repeat the sound ah example like by itself. You can just ah, the vowel A, the short A, but you can't really repeat a consonant by itself. Like t requires the T and the vowel sound. So consonants are considered dependent, vyanjana, and vowels stand independently, swara. And so for that reason, the Sanskrit tradition refers to vowel sounds as representing the soul and vyanjana consonants representing the body because the soul sort of stands alone. And that is why we are going to sort of be repeating the vowel sounds almost as their own mantras tonight because they have that kind of depth. We won't look at this whole quote again, but basically the idea is that we're working successively when we do this practice. We're not trying to jump all the way to the deepest level of a vibration. Maybe you can, maybe one of us one day will, but generally we're going to work like we're walking down steps, like we're walking into ourself one step at a time, feeling the physical level and then feeling a slightly less physical, more subtle level, which is described by Swami Lakshmanjoo as movement or vibration, right? And then ultimately, we're trying to feel something that's even beyond that. And that's sort of the leap of this practice that I hope we can all try in our own, spheres and work with and relate to. It's sort of like the difference between sitting on the side of a pool and having your legs dangle in the pool and being like, oh, isn't that refreshing? And it feels good and it feels refreshing. That's like the vibrational level of these sounds. And then we all know the difference between that feeling, which everybody can just sit by the side of the pool and put their legs in and feel pretty good. But then we all know there's this resistance to that next level, which is getting in the pool completely, right? Like we all know that coolness where you're like, whoa, it's colder than I want it to be. And oh, it's really affecting me and stuff. That's the flip. That's that leap that this dharana eventually is asking of us, where we're no longer just repeating these sounds from the outside in, but we're actually trying to feel the source and actually hear these tones or frequencies at these spaces and sort of reverse it. So we're not dipping our toes in the pool. The pool is really submerging, like we're submerged in the pool. So the roles become reversed. As Babaji often says, you're not doing the mantra anymore, the mantra is doing you. So we'll start doing these sounds together in a moment, but I wanted to bring one additional quote in today to feed into our practice. And this is from Nityananda, root guru of the lineage. And this is a quote that's in the book Bhagavan Nityananda. It's a very short, small book by Muktananda. And he says here, the music which you hear outside is nothing. Listen to the music within. It alone can give real satisfaction to the self. It is the voice of the soul. Turn your mind within and listen to it. Though we aren't necessarily listening to quote unquote music inside, these sound vibrations, for me in my practice with them, have greatly resembled the act of listening to music. Because if you think about it, when you're listening to music, you're in a very receptive state. You're really just like open and you're letting those vibrations go right to your heart, especially if you're enjoying the music. And so that receptivity, that openness is something that we can do consciously. You don't have to wait for your favorite song to come on to do the thing that's actually helping you enjoy it, which is opening, receiving, and feeling this source within. And so as we repeat these vowel sounds together, you can try to listen to them as if they were music, in the same with the same quality. All right, so that's the recap. Next, we're going to move around a little bit together and maybe filter in some of this teachings, but really just prepare ourselves for practice and meditation. Last week, we were laying down for our yoga class, heard there was a little bit of sleepiness, and I was like, okay, cool, I get it. So this week, we're going to start kneeling, and for that reason, and again, it's going to be about 8 to 10 minutes at the most, so not very long. You don't need a mat. But we're going to start kneeling. And for that reason, it could be nice to have a blanket underneath you, underneath your knees. So we'll start from kneeling. Again, option to put a blanket under the knees. Right away from kneeling, we need to sort of come into contact with our pelvis and the alignment of our pelvis and spine. And so for that, there's just a few pelvic tilts. And so for the pelvic tilt, there's a little lift of the tailbone, and then there's a slight tuck of the tailbone. And you want to feel the relationship of these tilts with your abdominals, with your spine, with your overall posture. You can bring the fingertips to the front of the abdominals and just sort of feel that tone that initiates on the front as you slightly tuck the tail under, and then you can feel how the abdominals lengthen as you lift the tailbone. We want to find some kind of middle ground that feels like there's tone on the front, the pelvis feels fairly neutral, which has a slight forward tilt to it, okay? It's not totally flat, but you shouldn't feel like there's a little bit of tone here and it's pretty neutral in the pelvis. And then from there, we can actually just do very gentle lean backs. And these lean backs will further sort of initiate tone across the front of the body. And so you're just leaning back, keeping the knees, hips, and shoulders in alignment. Nothing too strenuous, but it's really just saying hello. It's helping your posture sort of line up from the knees through the abdominals to the shoulders and neck. Next time you lean back, just sort of pause there for a moment, take in the experience, feel the work across the front of the legs, the hips, the core, feel the glutes have a slight tone, shoulders should be relaxed. All right, and then float back up. All right, cool. So we'll bring the right foot out in front. You don't have to, I'm not necessarily mirroring you. So just do your thing, do your right foot. The fingertips are going to tent on the floor in front of you, and you're just going to draw some nice big circles. Option to use your meditation cushion as a prop to keep those shoulders up higher. If there's blocks nearby, of course, but hopefully your fingertips might be enough. Classic cue here from Abaya is to imagine there's a quarter under your knee, and you're really just going to try and draw a circle around that quarter. Just some nice, big, gentle circles, flossing the hips, not really worrying about stretching the hips per se. Switch direction. Walk the foot in just a little bit if it feels, so you can feel supported as you press through the foot, unrolling up. And we're going to scoop both arms up to the horizon and feel the tone across the front of the body. Release the arms down. You can drift forward a little bit into that lunge. And then you're going to come back and lift the arms back up, feeling tone in the front of the body. As you come down with the arms, you can lunge a little bit. And as you come back up, lift. The next time you come up, pause for a moment, keep that tone on the front of the body, and then move into your lunge, keeping the arms right about where they are. The opposite arm will come up. So opposite arm and leg here. And then the arm that's the same as the bent knee, the right arm, will just lift up sideways as you bend towards it like a crescent moon, and then you come back up. So we're in a slight lunge, and we're bending laterally as the arms float up, as the bottom arm floats up. The next time you bend laterally, pause for a moment with that bottom arm elevated and slightly just sort of peek up through the heart, feeling across the grounded knee and the hip, feeling the stretch up through the chest, the tone across the front body. Arm slowly releases, come back up to vertical. Hands can come back inside the foot. And then from here, we bring the knees back towards each other in a half. It's like a baby plank, a slightly long table, baby plank. And just pause here. You don't have to do anything, but you can sway side to side. As you sway, stop on one side for an extra moment and feel the side of your abdominals engaging with you, and then go to the other side and watch as the abdominals follow. And pressing back to Bhaktasana for a breath. And then dragging the hands on the floor as you round up. Roll shoulders back. All right, and we'll repeat on the other side. Keep it simple. Foot's nice and it's not like right in front of the body. It's a little bit out to the side, gives you plenty of room for the hips. Hands could be on a chair right here if you wanted them, on your meditation cushion, or tenting your fingertips on the floor. Big circles, nice and easy, flowing. In the Dharana, we hear the visualization of honey-filled foci of awareness. Foci means multiple focal points. Honey-filled. So right now, imagine your hips are honey-filled hips. And watch how that sort of changes the way you work with them. If you haven't already switched direction, last couple. You can press down through the feet, the foot and the knee to bring yourself back up to neutral. Arms float up, finding tone in the front body. Hands can float down as you lunge and open across the heart. Just a few repetitions here. Next time the arms float up, pause for a moment. You've got some nice tone here in the front of the body. Allow the hips to drift forward. Right arm comes up, which is the opposite of the knee, in case we're on different legs. The left arm floats down. And then from this extended position, a slight lateral lean that would be towards the bent knee. That arm that's down floats up, engaging a little bit more of your deep core, your postural core. And then the heart can just sort of look up. Feel free to float the arm a couple of times. Next time the arm floats down, you can rise up. We'll bring the knees underneath us. Once again, revisiting that slight tilt of the pelvis, tone across the front midsection, and leaning back. Awakening, bringing some blood flow to those deeper hip flexors like the psoas. And then to finish, you're welcome to tuck the toes if that's comfortable for you. That's not possible for everyone. So if it's not, no problem. But we'll just finish with a couple of sweeps up through the arm, and you're just going to make some big circles and just sort of feel for this moment of heart opening, chest opening as the arm reaches back. You can switch the arms as you do it. If, as you're doing this, your fingertips just sort of graze a heel, you're welcome to pause at that heel for a breath and lengthen up. So you have one hand back and one hand up. If it doesn't, it's totally cool to just keep opening and feeling for that moment when the shoulders open as the arm reaches back. And to finish, we'll actually bring the hands just to table. And then float, slide, glide one leg back. Unweight the knee that's underneath you just for a second, and then glide that leg in. Glide the other leg back. unweight the knee that's underneath you. That means just barely lifting it. And then back in. And then if it's comfortable, Bhaktasana. If that's a little hard to get to right now, you can just sort of pause and roll up. But from Bhaktasana, we can all sit up on our heels and approach your cushion. So that's what 10 minutes of yoga feels like, in case anybody's wondering. It goes quickly. So we'll begin this week with a reading of the Dharana, and then we'll move into the practice of the vowel sounds at the various locations. Again, let the Dharana just sort of inform your work. You can see how reps takes us progressively from letters to sounds to feeling, and also gives us this visualization of honey-filled foci, which is multiple focal points. Devi, imagine the Sanskrit letters in these honey-filled foci of awareness. First as letters, then more subtly as sounds, then as most subtle feeling, then leaving them aside, be free. One more time. Devi, imagine the Sanskrit letters in these honey-filled foci of awareness. First as letters, then more subtly as sounds, then as most subtle feeling, then leaving them aside, be free. All right, so we begin with the short A sound, which should be at the very base. And this is the U sound, like in the word rut. And something, I'm going to switch my mic so it doesn't cut me off. But the U sound in rut, you can make by just saying rut, just say rut, and then just hold the just lining up the physical sound with the physical location at first. The long A sound, the pelvic floor. And so this is the O in mom. The short I sound, here it is described in the text as where we are conceived in the womb, a bundle of nerves. This short I sound, the I in bit, bit, the long I sound, the nabi or navel. The Manipura chakra is situated near it. B, it's the E in beat. The short U, the heart, the U in put. The long U at the base of the throat. Feel free to swallow before doing this. The U in pool. The short E. This is at the palate, the top of the roof of the mouth. The A sound in rain. Center between the eyebrows, the I in aisle. The forehead, the O in opal. O. The apex of the cranium, the ow and out. Ow. 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 We move beyond the body, so work with this in your own way that makes sense and works for you. This is the tone or the vowel sound of Shakti, pure energy, AM. Um, 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 and finally, the energy which appears when Kundalini finishes its journey. Again, a non-physical location. The ah sound. Ah. Take the next 5 minutes to continue working with this dharana in a way that works for you. Perhaps going back through the list and trying to hear the sounds one at a time in the location, not even saying them out loud, but mentally hearing them, visualizing. That's been very productive for me. Or perhaps you'd like to merely, or not merely, but you'd like to stay here in this sort of refined space with the Om sound, that high pitched frequency related to our nervous system, and hear that sound and focus on that. But the next level, whatever you choose, is definitely to switch from producing to receiving, from saying to hearing. As Nityananda said, listening to this music within. This is the voice of the soul. And for the last couple minutes, bringing your attention to the heart. Swami Rujananda once taught that we can adjust the frequency of of our awareness, much like on a radio. That instead of listening to the static, we can tune in to the heart. Imagine tuning into your heart frequency right now. It's in the air, just like the radio stations. Whether you stay in the static of the mind or whether you're willing to turn the dial of your awareness to the heart and listen. And as Paul Reps finishes the Dharana, be free. Can you feel the freedom in this practice? Allow your eyes to slowly open, allow the spine to move a little bit, and take the next 2 minutes to simply jot a few notes, a few words, or if you want to write a poem or doodle, but just comment to yourself on your experience, on what these honey-filled foci of awareness sort of showed you, a key word that you might have felt, anything that points to your experience. Just take 2 minutes for that. Just one more minute. Taking a moment to underline a keyword or phrase. And sometimes it's funny, we all look at whenever you have a cup of tea, right? You're always excited. What's on that tea bag aphorism? I look at this moment when you're writing as that for you. You went inside, you felt something real, and then writing it is almost like a surprise a little bit to ourselves, almost like looking like, oh, what does the world have to say to me? Trying to let your writing be spontaneous and effortless in case you're needing inspiration on that. Then you become your own um, horoscope. All right. So we've got some keywords coming in. The first one is Steve Davidson. Yes. I'm just kidding. Yeah. Keywords coming in. Did you have one, Abaya? All right. Align. Feeling the mantra throughout my body. Deeper inward. Freedom of the soul. And so manifesting back into origin. Nice. Well, everything's nice. That one just caught me there. So we've earned 20 minutes of discussion, everyone. We put in an hour and 40 minutes of practice together. So it's time to let ourselves hang out. Hopefully you're in gallery mode. Whole new perspective. Choice of static of the mind or the beautiful music of the heart. Yes. Rediscovery, awareness of what is. All right. Who would like to start us up? I'd love to hear from someone who'd like to share. All right, Anju.
Hi everybody. It's been a big week with this one for me. It sounds like from the words, probably not just me. Um, it really feels like this experience of almost kind of like having an inner shower for me, of like kind of having this mechanism that's gotten maybe a little like rusty, a little kinked, and I didn't really know. And then in doing this, it like was going in and like fixing some of that, putting some oil on the rust, and things just kind of like popped and clicked, but they didn't make any sound like this way. And I could really feel that like change and flow of things just like getting out of the way of themselves and opening up to something. And I really felt my navel for the first time ever, like really energetically in a new way. Yeah, it feels like a lot is just kind of clearing out. So I'm just so grateful that something seemingly so simple can have like such a huge impact. Um, so I'm just really glad to be here with all of you, and thank you for being on this journey with me. And I'm just excited that this can be happening.
Wow. Thanks, Anju. That's amazing. Yeah, I think you really nailed the metaphor. For my experience too, is like a feeling of a tune-up in a way. This idea, this like, lubricating a rusty part. Last week, Roseanne asked, like, is this supposed to be like a practice? And I'm like, no, it's like a tune-up. It's like a putting oil on a rusty part. You just do that every once in a while, and then it informs, the normal everyday work that we're doing. So that's a great visualization that you gave us. And then, yeah, the idea also that you were able to find and really low, like hold your attention in a spot and work with these sound vibrations, because sometimes it's like we're working with maybe a whole mantra or the breath, but I really enjoyed just being able to keep it really simple, like one sound, one syllable for an extended period was very effective for me too. So thanks, Anju. And if anybody wants to piggyback on that, comment on that, you're welcome to. If you have a totally different comment, go for it.
I had fun with this by doing the Guru Gita, uh, and it just created a. I've always noticed that when I really do get every syllable and every letter, that it's such a different experience. But this helped me do that even more. And this morning I kind of worked just on the different, there's a lot of A's, different of A's, and kind of worked on the different long A, short A. And I don't know, I just felt, I don't know why, but I just felt joy come from inside from doing it. The other thing is I have some favorite words in Sanskrit that have always been my favorite. And so I just made me be able to relate to them in a different way. I don't know. And another thing is like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah, it's AH, is the end of a lot of words. And so that was really great, because that finishes the journey of the Kundalini. And so that was really great, like Swaha and Nama and all that.
Great. That's really insightful. Great job, Usha. It's sort of like it's almost like you went on like a scavenger hunt and like found where these letters sort of exist. That's awesome. Especially the nama aspect. That's pretty important, and that is a part of every single mantra that we repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also had that experience when you start to differentiate the syllables in the Guru Gita, in case anybody's sort of at that point or you didn't know about that next level, taking time to do the vowels well in the Gita definitely ups the experience. If anything, at the very least, it makes you feel like you're doing it for the first time because it requires so much focus. But then there's a juiciness to the words when you're repeating them, um, with this appreciation for short A's, long A's, short I's, long I's. It really fills the experience up. And so I remember working on that like morning after morning after morning when I was living at Shoshone, and just really getting into that, because at the time I was trying to learn Sanskrit and I was like, oh well, I'm doing a lot of it, I just got to pay attention. So yeah, that's a wonderful place for everybody to sort of get in touch with these vowel sounds, and the vowel sounds are a great place to start because they really do form like the sort of the bob, the devotional sort of aspect of the words. It's the part that you really feel, the vibration. Thanks, Usha. It's awesome. Anyone comments or questions about that in particular, feel free to go ahead. Or if you have a different direction you want to go in.
I took apart. I sent you the wrong one. I'm sorry. I had to, but anyway, I'm doing on tar to tar, tar to re so high. So I took each symbol apart and wrote down, the sound of it and where it came from and everything. And it's really brought me more inside. I think sometimes when you're doing a mantra, some comfort, you're just trying to get the number in, and I realized that a lot of it was just coming from my head. And then, this helped me bring it into my body, not just my heart, but, um, it, it is more meaningful. It is.
Wow, I definitely look forward to seeing that.
Yeah,
Like,
I'll send it back to you. I
that's
had two
fun.
things called Tara, and I sent you the wrong one. I'm sorry.
No problem. Yeah, it sort of makes me think of the work that we've, been feeling and progressing with in our yoga practice, in general, uh, and just starting to feel how the body is a way in to this experience that we're seeking, that it's not somehow separate, but it's like one of the first steps that we sort of act like we can just skip over. But can we? And do we? Is it as effective when we just sort of jump over that and be like, oh yeah, just make my body still and just go into my heart? It's like, yes, absolutely could. It's very much a part of the practice that you can just go right to your heart, but there's also like you can walk there steadily, and sometimes you get there more like effortlessly, and sometimes you get there just more readily when you're willing to sort of work with that kosha, that physical layer of the body, and like aligning your awareness. So I think it's a really, honestly, I see it as like a pretty big part of like my practice growing, is starting to really realize that part of the process. So thanks for bringing that up in the discussion. these physical vibrations are very much part of the body. Oh, I see Shoshone unmuting. Go for it. Don't hear you yet, but I can see you're working on it. Okay. Feel free to type it if you have if anyway, but okay. All right. Anyone else want to put something out there, or has I could sort of re-articulate some of the things that have been said, but any other sort of perspectives on this practice? Oh, we've got another attempt at unmuting. While we're playing with that, feel free again, anybody who wants to raise your hand. Curious about Chaitanya, great. Your hand was right behind the camera, so I missed it, but go for it.
Yeah, my experience, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My experience was a little bit different. When I articulated the vowels, the sounds, and focused on the area where they're supposed to come from, as in the short up, and it's supposed to come from the base, the opening of the rectum and so on. It really happened like that. But once I stopped and then just waited, the focus seemed to shift automatically somewhere else, like it would come to the heart or it would come to the navel. And the next time I focused on the long the just one step above the root chakra, it went automatically to the throat after I stopped focusing on that vowel and stayed there for a little while. It seemed like there were different focus points that got triggered after I focused on the vowels where it's supposed to be at. And it seemed like there were these multiple points of awareness, I guess, is the way to put it, the foci that you talked about. And it really seemed to be there. They seemed to be responding on their own. I mean, the trigger was what the sequence we were suggesting. The response seems to be somewhere else, and they seem to be just popping in and out. And to Anju's point, at the end of it, when we were sitting down, and my mind and my emotions or the feelings were just popping up and down these awarenesses, there's a point where I could pop back inside beyond all of these and just kind of let them go. They were still there. But there was something else inside of me that just could step back just for a brief moment. That was delicious. It was amazing. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thanks, Chaitanya. Always a pleasure to hear from you. And Anju, feel free to pipe in if you'd like to respond to that. Yeah, these are beyond my metaphysical comprehension and experience. These sounds and exactly where they align to, and the idea that, they could be sort of almost like there could be multiple points of focus, because you're right, it does say foci of awareness. So yeah, that for me, it was just a practice of bringing my attention to these spots with a lot of just reverence and respect and listening, and then, as you put it, really just allowing what was going to happen, right? So it's amazing that you're able to sort of watch your awareness that closely, to notice that it was moving around. That's pretty interesting for me to hear, that it didn't necessarily require you, that there's that that ability to step back and observe it at that level, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. Curious, did anyone have did this concept help anyone with the idea of listening to these sounds as music, with actually, did that change your, really that last step of the process where you're not necessarily producing the sound so much as hearing it? That seemed, for me, that was sort of a big sort of final aspect. And when, like when Babaji says, when you're not doing the mantra, but the mantra is almost repeating you, um, that was a sort of that last line where it's like letting, as reps put it, leaving them aside, be free. So curious if that was a part of anyone's experience. Yeah, Propati.
I liked the leaving it behind or leaving it aside. I can't remember. Be free. That I was repeating that in my head and trying to experience that with, I think, some success. It felt that way to me. I wanted to go from the experience to the space, the openness, the freedom, and I liked it. I felt it.
Yeah, it feels like an important litmus test to be able to. The Vijnana Bhairava seemed, the introduction was so adamant, like, don't become dependent on these techniques. Use these techniques as a doorway, to feel inwards, and for all of us to really trust our practice, because as practitioners with a teacher and teachings and things that we do every day, like we have an incredible mechanism. And so we're actually able to sort of, draw out the essence of something like this, have it nourish us and have it sort of like fuel our daily practice. And so just sort of trusting that whatever your experience was, you don't even have to understand it, but it was sound like it can be beneficial without you necessarily knowing if you quote unquote accomplished it. The idea of being free, even just trying to be free in your meditation practice is, for me, it's almost like gratitude. It's like the attempt of feeling gratitude is itself the practice. The attempt to feel free is the practice. Oh, and we have a comment from Shoshone. I've loved it. I have been deep cleaning the temple for the holidays and remembered how it was built on the vibration of Om Namah Shivaya mantra. Felt and experienced how mantra creates the fabric of life. Ah, that is an sort of a cornerstone in our practice, and it's something that I feel like Swami Devananda has sort of exemplifies, is the idea of sort of putting your mantra first and really believing that it does transform what you're working on and that it can be felt. I think for a lot of individuals who are just beginning their practice, mantra is very much something that's external to us, that we can sort of overlay, on an activity, overlay on an experience. But once you've invested in mantra long enough and you've had the experience of it sort of coming through and quote unquote doing you or repeating you, or just like almost like the mantra's doing the dishes, um, starts to have a very different concept, as Devananda is commenting on here, that you can literally build something with mantra, that it is sort of the foundation of what you might see in front of you. that it actually does have that kind of effect. Well, thanks everyone for that discussion, and for practicing with me and the rest of your Sangha. Namaste. Please be sure to tune in next week. Chaitanya is going to be giving us sort of a story and description and doing his magic about the holiday of Navaratri, which is coming up. So that'll be very timely, and it'll be wonderful to have sort of that more expanded understanding of the holiday, be able to participate in it more deeply. And then the week after that, we'll be doing yoga in the natural state with Abhaya. So hope to see you then, and have a great weekend. Namaste.